This happened a few years back when I was 12 or 13 years old. I'm from the Philippines. It was a Sunday afternoon, probably 5 to 6 o'clock, and I was at home with my dad. My mom had left to buy groceries about 30 minutes ago using our one car. As I was watching videos on YouTube, the doorbell suddenly rang. It rang quite a few times until I had enough of it. That's when I knew that I had to open it. Knowing that my dad was probably sleeping in the other room, I reluctantly went downstairs to open the door. The thing is, I've dreaded opening the door for people ever since my grandpa scolded me for opening the door for the mailman in his house. He lectured me about how dangerous it could be, like I could be kidnapped or something. With that thought, I climbed on the sofa, which was 3 feet away from the door, and pulled the curtains to see who was ringing the doorbell. Note that the window I looked through was surrounded by a tall fence 4 to 5 feet away, so I felt perfectly safe, and I found it convenient later on once I talked to him. He had a dark cap on and a blue jumper suit. He looked pretty normal to me, but we weren't expecting anyone on a quiet Sunday. I asked him what his business was, and he replied that he was supposed to deliver pizza to my address. Excited and a bit confused, thinking that my dad secretly ordered pizza for us, I told him to wait for me to get my dad. I climbed upstairs to my parents' room and saw my dad sleeping. I woke him up and told him if he ordered pizza, and he replied with a daze that he didn't. Disappointed, I go back upstairs to break the news to the delivery guy, who was probably got the wrong address. But when I got back to the window, it was gone. Since I was pretty young back then, I didn't think much of it until now. Today, I'm certain even my mom agrees too when I told her the story a few years later that I was almost kidnapped. It was quiet outside and my bedroom window was open, but I didn't hear a motorcycle revving down near the house, nor heard it when it left. He left just like that, even though I specifically told him to wait. I didn't say that we didn't order pizza. I didn't see a logo of the pizza place he was working for. The strange thing was that we only had two that were near us, and they had distinctive red color. I didn't see a motorcycle near him, which was extremely odd. My mom's theory was that the guy was probably thought I was alone at home because our single car was gone, and my dad rarely got out of the house since he was unemployed back then. What probably got him to leave was that I told him to wait for me to get my dad. If not for my grandpa scolding me, I would have answered the door and probably not be here writing this to you guys. So, stay safe. I used to work at Pizza Hut when I was in high school. I have a lot of bizarre stories from working there, but this is the one that scared me the most. My Pizza Hut was the kind where you could only pick up the food, and there was also a wall between the storefront and the kitchen. So if you were in the front of the store, you were pretty much on your own. The store itself was located in a kind of out-of-the-way dead shopping center. Oh, and it was in Las Vegas. That should tell you a lot about the level of our clientele. For some reason, I always got stuck in the late shift despite being in high school, so on most weeknights by 10 at night it would just be me and one other cook in the store twiddling our thumbs. I would hang out at the front of the store, and the cook usually was at the back of the store and out of earshot. One night I was hanging out behind the counter and I saw this guy walk past. I didn't think much of it and went back to doing nothing while waiting for my shift to end. Then the door to the store opened. I look up and realize it's the same guy who just went by. He's tall but also like skeletally thin, and there is something not right about his eyes. But despite him putting me on edge, I get up, greet him, and ask him what he'd like to order. Nothing. He just stands there in front of me, staring up at the ceiling, muttering to himself. I was only 17 and for the most part a good kid despite living in Sin City, so I didn't really know what to make of it. Now I would probably just chalk it up to drugs anyway. He's still standing there, vacant expression and muttering in what sounds like tongues. Then he abruptly spins around and walks back out of the store without even acknowledging that I exist. I am unnerved, but I shake it off and sit back down. It's getting towards the end of my shift, and I'm counting down the minutes when I realize somebody has walked back into the store. I look up, and it's the same guy. Same creepy eyes, only this time he is holding a phone up to his ear. He's muttering unintelligibly, so I realize he's not talking to anyone, and worse, he's staring right at me, super intense and unblinking. At this point, I was starting to get frightened. He keeps looking at me, and so I try to be polite and ask if I can help him. He starts walking towards the counter, still staring at me. Then suddenly he asks in a perfectly normal voice if his order is ready. I'm mentally going, what the fuck at this point, not sure how to answer. So I go with the truth and tentatively point out to him that he didn't order anything when he was first in the store. He gets this bug-eyed look on his face and lunges toward the counter. I jumped back at this point, and my heart is pounding because this guy is obviously not sane. I'm also afraid that he is going to pull out a knife or something and stab me. Then just as abruptly as he lunged, he yells, "God damn it!" Looks super confused and upset, looks like he's about to cry, and puts his head in his hands and starts pulling at his hair. I start to feel slightly bad at this point, and I asked as nicely and calmly as I can if he maybe wants to order something now. His head snaps back, his expression is now completely blank, and he looks totally deranged. I am holding totally still because I am afraid moving will set him off. Then thankfully the door to the store opens and a huge man walks in. He looks at this guy kind of confused, realizing that something's not right with him. The crazy guy looks at him, looks at me, then starts backing up until he's out the door. He starts walking towards the edge of the store front, looking at me the whole time, and then he goes past the edge of the store and is gone. The guy who walked in looks at me and asks, "What the hell was that?" I looked at him and go, "I have no idea. I think he was crazy." I try to shake it off, but I'm totally on edge for the rest of my shift. When I clocked out that night, I made one of the drivers walk out with me. Then I jumped in my car and got out of there. I never saw the dude again, but it was a weird experience and pretty unnerving. I am also not sure what he would have done if that guy hadn't walked in when he did.